and welcome to KnightHunter Books. We've got quite a few books to show you for our November wrap-up. So we're going to start with our least favourite books up to our favourite books of the month.
My first book is Darkness Hidden by Zoe Marriott, and this is a YA. It's the second in a series. It focuses a lot on sort of Japanese folklore, but it's set in London. So a young girl steals her grandfather's katana. This turns out to be a very, very bad plan, and shenanigans ensue. They're fast, they're fun, they're quite modern.
My next would probably be rated lower than that one. This one's 2.5 stars for me. It's Out by Natsuo Kirino. And I've read one of her other books before, which I really liked, so I would maybe continue with the author. But this book follows a group of women who work in a lunchbox factory in Japan who end up covering up of a murder case. And...
please tell me they don't put it in the lunchboxes.
No. It was mentioned. So what I liked about this was there are quite a few kind of slice of life parts where you actually get to see what home life is like for all these women, which was really interesting. Ultimately, I found it a little bit slow with lots of lead up, which might have been okay if the ending really amazed me and surprised me. Well, I think it did surprise me. I found the ending very disappointing. It didn't seem to mesh with what I expected from the characters that I knew. I might have read them wrongly, but not to my taste.
My next one, a small book you might have heard of, Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling. It's Harry Potter, enough said.
My next one I rated 3 stars. It's Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, which I can't deny I was really impressed by her writing. I could definitely say she's a good writer, and I think I would have really liked to study this in school. So an interesting book with lots to read into, but I can't say I actually enjoyed it that much. I think I wasn't overly convinced with the characters if it's framed as a romance novel, and I'm not sure I could say it was framed as anything else. I guess the male heartthrob didn't strike me much as a heartthrob. Yeah, it probably would have been quite modern for the times. I found it really interesting in the afterword where it actually talks about what Daphne du Maurier's life was like. I could actually see a lot of the parallels in that. I did quite like the mystery elements, and it was also quite interesting reading a book set in the 30s, which I don't think is a time period I've read much of, and most period romances I've read are set way before that, so I found it kind of jarring, them answering the telephone and stuff like that. But, so I might dip into another one of her books, but not in a hurry.
My next one will be familiar if you watched our book recommendation swaps. This is The Gargoyle by Andrew Davidson, and this is...
a book I recommended you ages ago and just read. Yay!
As well as that, it starts out as a very contemporary semi-romance until increasingly sort of fantastical elements get thrown in. While it is a novel, there are sort of almost short stories interwoven within it, but the main character is an epic douche nozzle. The first quarter maybe was quite painful reading his point of view. He does slowly become more of a human being, but yeah. So an interesting one, and not one I'd have picked up without your recommendation. So thank you for that.
My next book is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, which I rated a solid 3.5 stars. I think I could definitely see this one having potential if I'd have read it at the right point in my life. This book follows a young kid who grew up on a reservation going to a all-white school down the road. He's very keen on comics, so I liked that those comics were used to kind of tell the story in various places, which is quite a nice touch. The main thing I really liked was actually just getting a glimpse of what Native American culture is like, because it's not something I've ever really seen much about. And it was really kind of heartfelt, and there were some really lovely bits about just being a teenager and how difficult that can be. But not being a teenager going through troubles at the moment, I think that didn't resonate or help me through anything quite as much as it might have.
A YA that you can imagine being nice for young adults.
Oh, I'd definitely pass this on to, like, kids we know, or, yeah.
So, young adult in the original sense.
Mm.
My next one you'll have seen me haul recently, because I read new books. The Revenge of Eli Mompress by Rachel Aaron. And this is, depending on how you look at it, either Volume 2 or Volumes 4 and 5 of The Adventures of Eli Mompress, who is a magical thief in a high fantasy universe. It goes through a bit of a genre shift. So the first 3 are much more magical hijinks. They're heist novels. This one is kind of epic fantasy, you know, big scope, big stakes. And whilst it was good epic fantasy, and I enjoyed it and it was fun, honestly, turns out high fantasy hijinks are really quite good fun, and I would have quite happily read another 10 of those. But hey, there you go.
My next one we actually both read this month, and that's Amulet Volume 1 by Kazu Kibushi. I really liked this. I rated it 4 stars. It follows 2 young kids who are trying to find their mother, who's been kidnapped from the basement into a magical realm, and they go on an adventure trying to get her back. And the artwork's beautiful. I found it a really cute story.
It's just
incredibly
not
quick
much of
to
a
read.
story.
Yeah, I think that's the main. It takes hardly any time to read. It's mostly pictures, so it's a really lovely experience, but it doesn't last very long. And it doesn't stand alone very well either. So
No.
my response to that is, oh, I really want to get the next one. You're less sure?
Yeah. On the other hand, it does explain why they sell volumes 1 to 3 in a box.
Yeah, we should have bought them all together. So nice.
Another one from our recent haul, Pocket Apocalypse by Sean Maguire. This is the 4th of the Encrypted series. So honestly, rather than talk too much about this book, I'm tempted just to plug the Encrypted series. This is a good instalment. They are a light urban fantasy series with quite a lot of humour, quite a lot of action, and singing religious mice.
My next one is Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, which wasn't in the haul for this month because I bought it a few days after the haul. I really needed this book. This was lovely. I loved it so much. It's the second in the Wayfarer series, following on from A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, but they do both stand alone, although I think you probably get more from it having read the first one. So this follows 2 characters from the first book, and who are minor characters, and really focuses in on them, and I really love the parallels between kind of the stories of each of those 2 characters, and there's some jumping back and forward in time, so you really get to know them, and I just found it a really lovely experience. It was one of those books where I just didn't really want it to end, and I didn't actually rush through it, but I think that was because I was aware that it wasn't actually that long, and I wanted it to keep going. So, loved being able to read more about the universe, and will definitely be getting any follow-on books as soon as they're released.
I think it's quite interesting noticing we've got a Radio 2 book club sticker on there. Like, if I remember, yeah, it's not from an explicitly genre publisher, so it's not necessarily being published or sold as a genre work.
I think this has hit the mainstream.
Yeah.
Also, we did go to a signing, and I like that it says to the KnightHunters.
My last one, before we get onto the previously recorded, is Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. And this is a lovely middle grade, I think middle grade, piece where you have somebody becomes the sidekick to an evil genius. And then she turns out to be a shapeshifter. And then there's all sorts of fun and games where it turns out that actually, whilst he's an evil genius, the society that he's in is not exactly covering itself in glory either.
Breaking with tropes?
Yes, not least the setting is odd in that they sit down and I think have an evening watching Netflix together. So they have video calls and the internet, and So a very advanced magical society.
Yeah.
Which is fun. So, recommended. Now one I recorded earlier. This is another book I read this month, but had to take back to the library, hence this message coming to you from the past. This is an Asian-inflected epic fantasy with modern sensibilities. The main problem I had with it is not to do with this book in particular, but because of the genre. It's a long time since I've read a lot of epic fantasy, and I was finding myself a little reluctant to go back into it. It's about 800 pages, and it's not always quite as quick as it could be, but there's a lot to like about it. I'd recommend it for fans of epic fantasy who are fed up of reading about farm boys discovering their destiny in a whitewashed medieval European alternate world. Good fun.
And that's all we read this month. If you've read any of these, then let us know your thoughts, or just let us know what you've been reading this month. So thank you for watching, we'll see you again soon.